Let's talk Anji in Season 2. Like many Anji players, I had an initial negative impression of the character. I boot up training mode, tested Nuko and Rin, and found myself, well, perplexed. While it's obvious Rin was much stronger for offense, combos used for Rin were gone. Charge Fuujin losing its launch meant Anji's damage output was significantly lower, and Ko no longer having a hard knockdown weakness was, well, weird. What was he going to do for Oki? These changes felt untested and gave me a bitter taste in my mouth, as his previous game plan was fumbled. But what's important to understand with a new season is new opportunities. Given this new lens, all Anji players need to rethink their approach of the character from the ground up. And with some critical thought, I was left with this impression that Anji actually might become a menace on this patch. Anji, from my point of view, was best played as a mid-range footsies, poke counterpoke oriented character. Furthermore, his goal in Season 1 was to frequently fish for counter hits using typically 5H, 2D, Fuujin at times, in neutral, to score high damage into Shitsu Oki. The latter half of his game plan largely doesn't work very well anymore, but out of meter given the changes to his kit. Instead, Anji's tools have been repurposed. And this is where I start thinking of the positives given the changes in Season 2. Given the frame data in disjoints, he's much stronger in neutral with slash buttons and less recovery on Fuujin. Another thing also with the system mechanic changes is that counter hits on lights, very good for Anji, given his lights are amazing. 5K has a lot of range given the frame data and can be hit confirmed to Fuujin on counter hit. 2P to 6H is fantastic. These are amazing changes for this character, and I actually truly believe he's one of the best characters that benefit off this change, given obviously some other characters that may also benefit. Anji can challenge in spaces where previously he would falter to stronger tools his opponents would have. Once we factor Fuujin frame data changes being less negative on block, we come to understand that Anji finally has a stronger offensive tool, something that he can actually do on block and pressure people. I've said this before, but Season 1 Fuujin is awful, really bad, but not because of the normal reasons people have, and normal reasons are the ones you might see on like Twitch chat, Reddit, Twitter, like all that garbage, right? It wasn't because DP always wins, because with strong spacing, DP never truly won. It was just a gamble as usual. Nor was it because of people mashing on defense, because once again, mashing on defense is a gamble. It was because you had limited ranges where it was effective and you could not treat it like a real Rekka. But finally, Anji has a real Rekka, something that you can pressure people with. You can now stagger your pressure into normals cleanly. Like I've suggested before, with normal into normal, you can now do Fuujin into like stuff like 2S, right, or 5H, and you can feel a lot more powerful about this because of the fear people will have of the Fuujin follow-ups. This allows Anji players to play closer to the chest and keep up their offense. And closer to the chest is largely just a little bit more up close, essentially, if you don't understand that idiom. These changes were desperately needed as Fuujin was such a worthless tool, given the character identity. Rin being 21 frames makes it significantly harder to react to. And while you'll have people saying, well, actually, like pushing up their glasses, 21 frames isn't reactable, I hate this logic. Fighting games and humans aren't so binary. We will not be able to react to everything that happens. It's not a situation where Rin was 25 frames before, or that with Alpha Braid being 28 frames where, yes, this is much easier to react to. And here's the easiest example I can give you, is the fact that Tap Dust, to this day, is 20 frames, and with this massive orange glow, and strong players get hit by it all the time. You know, one more thing I wanted to add actually to this whole conversation of reactability and, 20 frames, 21 frames, that doesn't really matter. Even though you could potentially fuzzy OS and block Nagiha and Rin because of the buffs to the other Fuujin follow-up of Shin, it makes it more difficult to properly respond to all the different things Anji could do, as stated earlier. With Fuujin being less negative and you being able to stagger your pressure, it makes it hard to respond to all these things because of the mental stack. This is really important to note because Anji will be forced to play more in line to this instead of descending it. Helps with pressure and conversion ability, and reduces players' ability to challenge, which is fantastic. We love to see it. And while frame data changes to Nagiha seem, well, weird to some, from my POV, it makes it more difficult to fuzzy guard Fuujin follow-ups by making Rin and Nagiha closer together. There's no doubt in my mind Anji is 100% a better character. That being said, some previous Anji players may not like how he currently plays. because his playstyle has largely been shifted. Once again, no longer fishing for counter hits, blah blah blah, just big damage output, doing all this cool like combo routing. It's all gone, right? A lot of it's gone, I should say, and some of it's still intact. He's now much more of a play closer to the chest, more focused on the mid-range and footsies, a little bit worse of a gambler, but you can definitely apply a lot of pressure, build risk, and scare people to challenge you. Even with all that being said, I want to speak on some of the negative opinions I have, which are quite simple. Anji still does not feel complete. The loss of hard knockdown feels unwarranted. Normally, if there's no wall nearby, you could simply take the hard knockdown and apply Shitsu Oki and then force them to kind of guess strike or throws, a little bit high, low, stuff like that. This option has been, well, gimped and forces you to lose a lot of damage in order to get a normal meaty like 2S. Meter can compensate for this, but this will cause Anji to become very meter hungry for some of the most basic options that are available to characters within his archetype. A character with an Oki option like Shitsu should have a hard knockdown in their kit, so it makes me ask like a question, why wasn't this shifted to Fuujin? Placing it on Nagia or Ren would have made a lot of sense if you want to shift his power. Speaking of Ren, since it no longer bounces, some of Anji's conversions are gone. Now he can't do Ren loops in the corner and provide an awkward knockdown. This is kind of weird from my perspective because it visually looks wrong and does not feel very good, but that could change in time once players, and myself specifically, get used to it. But once again, it gives me this feeling that his kit is just incomplete. And to top it all off, Fuujin not launching on hit. As mentioned before, this kind of all makes sense because they want to shift his playstyle. They want to make him a different character altogether. And I actually think this is technically the better direction. But without meter, you can't really convert like you could before, right? And that's kind of like where a lot of this is leading to, is this like his conversion ability to bigger damage feels lacking. When yes, they want to lower damage output in the game overall, but some characters really didn't lose that much damage. You just made things a little bit more different or awkward or change their routing, right? You also have situations where you have something like 6H gets like this big counter hit effect, this massive slowdown where it's just counter in the background, but you are left with a lot to be desired. Your follow-up is essentially gone entirely. It makes me wonder why they made this change given all these new shiny tools. It makes Anji feels hollow, where this cool option that we had is completely gone. Now, don't get me wrong, I think he might be a menace on this patch, but his tools are lacking still. It's very clear to me that ArcSystem is scared of making this character too strong with good reason. You, even if you're an Anji player, you do not want a world where this character is top tier. His character design is inherently unhealthy for fighting games, largely because of guard point. You don't want this character to be good. You want characters like Kai to be top tier. You never want characters like Anji to be top tier. You want this character to be mid tier, from a developer perspective. I'm not a developer, but you know, I do analyst stuff. But for me personally, as a player, all I want is a complete character. I really wish Anji had a hard knockdown on something. Give it on Nagia without counter hit. Give it on Rin. I don't care. Let me do Shitsu offense. Why do I have this tool when I can only use it off throw or 2D or something like that? It feels terrible. Why get this big counter hit when I can't really do anything cool off it? Why is my 5H conversion so awkward and inconsistent? Why do I not get Oki off some of my options still? It's so perplexing. I'm so confused by these things. Even if Anji is much stronger, much scarier up close, some of his tools just don't feel good when you put them to practice. It's very disappointing, to be frank. I want Anji to feel like a better character. And while he's still fun to me, in all honesty, because I don't know, Fuujin go burr, all I want at the end of the day is a complete character. Give me a complete character. But it is what it is. I'm just rambling at this point. I apologize. What I do plan on doing though is I do plan on making a kind of like a guide. I don't think I'm going to do a full character guide because that's not really my style, but I will be doing a guide on Fuujin and how to properly use Fuujin. I feel like a lot of people don't actually have very critical thinking when it comes to how to use Fuujin Rekas and all that nonsense. So I'll try to do something that will help everyone's offense out a little bit. But I digress. What do you guys think? Comment, like, and subscribe. you know, the YouTube stuff, and I'll see you again later. I'll be streaming on Twitch later this week too. This has been Bit Hitter. Peace.